All right, so I'm here today with JP Matenga, the co-founder of YouFarm. Thank you so much for making the time.
No, thanks for having me.
Uh, what is YouFarm exactly? What do you guys do?
So what we do is we provide farmers with access to collateral-free finance by getting people to invest in crops and livestock and share the profits with the farmers when the produce goes to market. So basically, it allows people who don't have access to land an opportunity to earn money and also become a part of the agricultural value chain by investing in agricultural produce.
Okay, so anyone can invest in agricultural produce through your platform.
Yeah, so anyone can invest in a farmer. The average minimum investment is probably like around about 200 Rand for a project, all the way to the full amount for a project. It just depends on you.
Okay, so you decide how much you want to give,
Yeah.
and then once the farming cycle is completed, you get your money back with some sort of return.
Yeah, so it's a very simple business model. The profits are shared after the produce has gone to market. So the farmers take 40% of the profit, the investors take 40% of the profit, and then we take 20% of the profit. That's how we make our money. So to kind of put it into context, if a farmer required 1,000 Rand to do tomatoes, for example, we put that up on the platform. People will come and invest. When that produce goes to market, let's just say it fetches 2,000 Rand. The first 1,000 Rand goes back towards paying that initial investment, and the remaining 1,000 Rand is what we consider to be the profit. So the farmer takes 400 Rand. The investors will share 400 Rand depending on how much they put in, and then we take 200 Rand.
Okay. So what is the minimum requirement that a farmer has to raise through your platform in order to make sense?
So for us, the most important thing for a farmer is permission to use the actual land. That's what's really, really important. So because we don't want a situation where halfway through the season, the owner of the land suddenly comes and says, get off, or decides that the crop is now his. But the most important thing is permission to actually use the land. So that can come in the form of a title deed. In Zimbabwe, they're called offer letters or 99-year leases, a rental agreement, a lease agreement as well with maybe the owner of the land, or written permission from the owner of the land saying that this person can use the land. Because the whole idea is that, anyone should be able to farm. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. If you've got the land, let's make it productive.
How did you come up with this idea? Were you always a farmer yourself, or?
No, I wasn't. I actually studied biomedical science, and then did medical school for like 3 years, and then dropped out because I wasn't happy with what I was doing. And that really, really pissed off my parents, but that's a story for another day. So towards the end of 2016, my mother actually acquired a farm in Zimbabwe, and being your typical Zimbabwean mother, she decided that it was my problem, and I should then make the land productive. So I ran around. I spoke to banks. I spoke to private individuals and stuff like that, and no one was just willing to lend me any money. And they were asking me for things like collateral. The terms that they were giving were ridiculous. And it then occurred to me that there are thousands of farmers in the same boat. And around about the same time, I was looking at small ways of investing, money, $100 here, $20 there. And it just occurred to me that we could put the two together and get people to invest in crops and livestock and share the profits. And that's how YouFarm was basically born.
Okay. So your mom gets a farm and says, then it's your problem. You have to make it productive. You have challenges to actually do that because you don't have the access to finance.
Yep.
Then what was your first step once you decided that YouFarm was the solution for that?
It was actually research now. So because I don't have an agricultural background, I had to do lots of research and figure out, how the whole agricultural value chain works. Ended up doing all sorts of weird research, finding out like how the repayment back periods and like how farmers repay back. Do small-scale farmers want to repay back? You end up finding out interesting statistics about the fear of farmers in terms of taking loans. So you'll find that 80% of small-scale farmers are scared to go to the bank to actually go get loans because they're afraid that they might not be able to pay back the loans and stuff like that. And you'd probably find that, I think it's like something like 70% of them or something like that would take loans if they were actually available. and that sort of thing. So it was a lot of research in 2017, and then also back and forth with the Securities Exchange Commission as well, because being a new thing, crowdfunding and stuff like that, there's no laws for that in Zimbabwe. So yeah, a lot of research on how we could actually get it implemented properly.
Okay. And then after the research phase, what did you do? I mean, now you have all these insights about how the market works, about the beneficiaries, essentially, like the farmers. What was the next step in making this project come alive?
So the next step was just getting it done, getting the crops in the ground, So, I mean, obviously being a startup and new to the startup world, there were weird things that I had to do, like, creating a pitch deck, learning how to pitch and all the stuff that, founders don't like. Yeah, so, created a pitch deck, spoke to different people. So it was funny because, when I look back onto it, I even had to teach myself how to do HTML so that I could build the first website.
Yeah.
Because, talking to people like, different developers, you get told stories, oh, we can build it, or, it can't be done, and for me, I had to learn how to build the first website just to get going. And so now part-time, I kind of teach myself how to develop and stuff like that. So it's a cool new trick that I learned. And also then setting up the actual team that can actually make things happen. I think that's the most important thing. And, I always tell other entrepreneurs this when I'm talking to them, that self-awareness is the most important thing as an entrepreneur. You have to be self-aware. You can't do everything. You don't know everything. You don't have the answers for everything. So the moment that you're self-aware and you realize that, oh, I don't know how to market, or I don't know how to talk to people, go find a marketing officer to be a co-founder or a team member. If you don't know how to develop, go find someone to be a team member as well. And yeah, so that was literally like the next stage after all the research and stuff like that. And I think one of the funniest stages was for me the stage where, and I think every new entrepreneur goes through this, where I've got this brilliant idea, immediately I'm going to get people to fund it. You immediately think that, someone's going to come and give you $100,000 of their hard-earned money for your idea. So you have to actually go and implement it, get that sort of traction and show that, okay, this actually works. So, I mean, to this day, we're still self-funded. We're still looking for an angel investor at the moment, but we're still self-funded. But that doesn't stop us from actually doing the work. Yeah. And one day we're going to get someone who will be like, okay, you know what? Here's some money to actually go and scale. But again, a lot of entrepreneurs think that it can't be done without the money. So yeah, so figuring all that stuff out, I think 2017 and 2018 were big learning curves for us.
I mean, I totally agree, but I always find it interesting then, how do different entrepreneurs with different ideas, develop their idea and get it going, even though they don't have the injection of capital by someone else. So how did you do that? You said, okay, you went out and you built a team. You saw, okay, I need someone in this place and this position. So how did you convince the people to come on board, although you didn't have the funding?
So, I mean, first of all, you have to work with what you have, and you can't use the excuse that because I don't have the funding, I'm not going to do anything. Do as much as you can, take it as far as you can, and then, hopefully someone will help you take it further. And I mean, I can give plenty of examples where we got to a point where, where we thought, right, we're done for. And then all of a sudden now we're here in South Africa as part of the Startup Bootcamp Accelerator, which has helped us, stay alive and that sort of thing. I think for entrepreneurs, most importantly, is if the idea is good enough, you should be able to get people on board to actually back you up as well. So like, I know that when I started out with my team, the first thing that I told them was that, look, guys, this is a startup. We can't afford to pay you salaries monthly until things start working, So if you're here just for the salary and you're not here to achieve the goal of being able to change the way agricultural funding is done for farmers in Africa, then maybe this is not the place that, that you should be working for. There's going to be some tough months where maybe you go 3 months without a salary, But, that's the startup life. And the people that were agreed to are the guys who are still part of the team to this day, because they actually understand that, there's a bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay. So they bought into the vision. You were obviously able to communicate it clearly and inspire them so much that they said, okay, we want to be a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the first campaign that you then actually launched and made available to investors?
So the first campaign that we did was the first one that we actually closed was one for mushroom farmers in Zim. So we were able to take a 23-year-old farmer who, from zero funding all the way to harvest within a space of 4 months. I think there was in total, the people that invested in that project, there were about 10 people that invested in that project. We actually did payouts for that last month, I think. I'll need to check with the team, but the returns were 120%. So the lowest, one guy invested $100. I think he was probably the lowest investor in that project, and he walked away with $220. So it's 100 for the investment and $120 on top of that. So, which was really, really cool for us, because we went from being a theoretical company to an actual practical company. So, I mean, even just the amount of support that we've got from people in Zim has been amazing, because December 2018 was when we were told that, okay, by the regulators, that we're not going to regulate you and stuff like that. And the first 3 months, from January to March, I was kind of struggling because I was still trying to build the team. The moment that we built the team, we had, like, in a space of 3 months, a 400% increase in investor registration. So, like, we had, like, the first initial 100 that we're kind of talking to and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, this one weekend, they actually broke the website, and they actually crashed the system and stuff like that. And we had over like 400 registered farmers and investors. All of a sudden, we had like 180 registered farmers in Zimbabwe. Now it's closer to 600 registered investors, and we've got over 200 registered farmers. The biggest challenge for us is, because we're a small team, we're not able to get to all the farmers, but you can see that the demand is there, and there are people who actually want to actually invest in these projects, because Zimbabweans understand agriculture a lot. And if you think about it, there's been 20 years of propaganda telling us about how agriculture is important to the country and sustaining the economy and stuff like that.
You just paid out your first campaign, but you had more campaigns since then, right?
Yes.
What were the other campaigns, and how did they fare?
So we've got, there's a basil and parsley campaign. Those ones are still going on. Then there's one that didn't do well, and that was the chicken project. And the reason why that project didn't do well was because the people that we chose to partner up with took too long to make a decision. So it wasn't a single farmer, but was a whole bunch of them. So the whole committee is coming together and stuff like that. And unfortunately, because Zimbabwe is in a hyperinflationary environment, by the time that they pulled the trigger and said, let's do this, the cost of inputs had gone up about 3 or 4 times. So we just kind of had to, pull back on that one. So the other projects are ongoing. We've stopped on taking up new projects in Zimbabwe until things calm down a bit. And now we're in SA and we're launching. So we've got 2 very interesting projects here in SA. The first one is to establish a brand new vineyard at Chris Hani High School in Kailicha. And this is actually a long-term investment, something that we've never done before. And this investment will actually last the lifespan of the vineyards, which is like 70 years. So it's a really, really cool investment opportunity. And the kids will actually get to use it for their agricultural department as well and stuff like that. And it creates extra income for the school. The second one is in partnership with someone called the Spinach King. He's the off-taker for this one in Kailicha. So we've got several farmers that are there in Kailicha Site C. And he buys produce from these farmers, but they can't keep up with his demand. So this is where we're going to actually step in and provide funding for these guys and get them going. In SA at the moment, we've got pledges of over 250,000 Rand to actually support these projects, but we haven't actually accepted any of the money from any of the potential investors just yet, because again, this is crowdfunding and this is quite new and stuff like that. There are regulatory issues involved. So we need to actually tick that so that we remain an honest business.
Yeah. It's very interesting because just now you mentioned that the off-taker and the Spinach King. Yeah. So tell me a bit more about your role. So you provide the platform, you accept the farmer applications, but you also know the off-takers.
Yes. So there's no way that this is going to work without the off-takers. So, I mean, first of all, the first thing that we do is we need to actually protect the investors' money. So it means that we need to curate those farms seriously. If a farmer says, he can irrigate 20 hectares, we want to go and see that the irrigation equipment works, there's actual water at the farm, and you're not just going to give this guy inputs and then he's going to tell you that, you know what, I actually need a pump or something like that.
So you're actually going to the farms and checking out that
Yeah.
things are in place.
Yeah, we inspect. It's a very high-touch business. So there's a lot of work that we put in the background. Then secondly, it doesn't matter how much experience a farmer has doing a certain product. This guy could have been farming maize for 200 years. They still have to work with one of our agronomists from planting all the way to harvest, because we want to ensure that these guys are doing best practice. And we also want to maximize the yields, because some farmers will tell you that they've got experience, but some of the experience is taking shortcuts. So he might use half the fertilizer that you give him for a project instead of using all of it, and then you wonder why your yields are low and stuff like that. So they have to actually work with our guys as well. But then finally, the most important thing is you have to have a market for the produce, because these are perishable goods at the end of the day. So you don't want a situation where you farm lettuce, for example, and then now this lettuce is sitting somewhere in a warehouse for 2 weeks while you're running around looking for a customer to actually then purchase that lettuce. So it's part of how we can actually then be able to tell someone who invests in the produce that, look, that it's safe because, we're ensuring that the farmer is fit for farming. We're also making sure that there's a market for the produce. So there's already a buyer for the produce. All we just need, and you got to think about it as a partnership between the farmer, YouFarm, and the investor. So in this partnership, what we need is your money. We've secured the farmer, and we've also secured the market. The market. Let us run around, do the work for you, and you get your returns, depending on what sort of crop you've picked in. So if it was, say, chickens, for example, you'll get your returns in 5 weeks. If it's lettuce, you get it after 2-3 months or whatever.
We're sitting in South Africa now, and you're eyeing with Mozambique. So what's your decision, or what's the basis for your decision to expand into these markets quite rapidly? Although you just started, you just launched in Zim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. The first issue is so we're targeting SADC, and you got to look at SADC as one whole country as opposed to individual countries. So that means we're targeting a population of 350 million people, whereas if we just target Zimbabwe, that's 16 million people. And if you break the numbers down, if we just worked in Zimbabwe alone, you'd probably end up with only 10,000 people that can potentially afford to actually invest in over 100,000 farmers. And also with the way that we've built that we're trying to build the system anyway, this should be a really simple plug-and-play system that you can get into any country and then start it there locally. And with local experts, they can get people in those countries to start funding their farmers. There's also a whole diaspora contingent. So if we started in Mozambique, for example, we know that there are Mozambicans outside of Mozambique who want to invest back home. So we're giving them the opportunity. Ultimately, our goal as YouFarm is to change the way agricultural finance is done in Africa, because we don't believe that there's a good excuse for not funding a farmer. So we can't just say that, this is only a solution for Zimbabwe. It's also a solution for SA. It's also a solution for Mozambique, Namibia, Tanzania, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So what's your strategy for going into a new market? How do you do that?
We are looking for local partners, experts who've got knowledge of, whether it's regulatory issues, and also deep knowledge of agriculture in those countries, because every country is different. I can tell you right now that although the principle is the same in Zimbabwe, the principle for YouFarm Zimbabwe is the same as YouFarm South Africa, it's two totally different animals. So, there's still a lot of stuff that we're actually learning. So, for example, while the profit share in Zimbabwe might work at 40-40-20, in South Africa, maybe we might need to take 10% profit and then give the farmer another 10% from our end to make it 50%, so that they're getting more, because some of the meetings that we've had, they've said that, maybe your profit share is a bit skewed. So every country is different, yet the principle is the same. And the markets are also different as well. South Africa's got a more mature agricultural market, for example, which means that from a logistics perspective, we don't have to worry too much about getting produce from the farm to the market. Whereas Zimbabwe is not that mature, so you then have to think about logistics. How are you going to get produce to the market as well? So every country is different, but the principle is the same. So you need experts on the ground who know what they're doing.
Yeah. JP, how did you manage to, to sustain yourself, to finance your own lifestyle, pay rent, pay food, and all this while your platform is still growing? You don't have the investors yet. I mean, it's coming. You already have revenue from the first projects, but as you also mentioned, like the regulatory issues and all this, it takes quite some time. So how do you survive during that time?
So, I mean, look, in Zimbabwe, I was fortunate to survive by, there's a small business that I was running. So it does screen printing and embroidery and stuff like that. So even made my own shirts, So I'm quite fortunate in that aspect as well. And I've also got a very understanding wife, which helps. And then in South Africa, we were fortunate to get some money as part of the Startup Bootcamp Accelerator, which is what's kept us and sustained us while we're trying to do the transition here. In the meantime, at the moment, we're trying to raise $250,000 in angel investment in the South African holding company so that we can actually now build a proper team and get things going and get more hands on deck so we can actually just become fully functional and not actually have to worry about, paying rent and, doing all these things. So like right now we're sitting in the Startup Bootcamp offices. Even though the program finished in November, we've still actually got access to the offices for the next 6 months while we get ourselves organized and stuff like that. So at least that takes one thing off the table to worry about.
Yeah. What has been your biggest learning over this journey so far?
I think I've had quite a number. I think planning is very important. So those who fail to plan to fail. Simple and straightforward. Secondly, you need to be very, very resilient. You're going to hear no 1,000 times, but you can't give up. Like I'm always laughing with my team, like the number of applications that we used to do for, all these startup programs and accelerators. And, I used to always laugh with them that if I don't get at least one no a week in my inbox, I'm not doing something right.
You're doing too little.
Yeah, I'm doing too little, and then all of a sudden now, we're actually getting yeses, just now, beginning of this month, we actually won the best agricultural startup in Southern Africa. This is stuff that we've never actually, thought would be possible or, dreamed of, and, we now get invited to, come tell our story in all sorts of different places and stuff like that, and when I look to where I was 2 years ago and where I am right now, it's, totally different. I mean, if I showed you the first pitch deck that we ever did to pitch for Seed Stars Harare, you'd be laughing. Even I laugh at it, but it's all about growth and not, sticking in the same place.
Yeah. And what has been the biggest challenge for you?
I think the biggest challenge has been probably for me is kind of the frustration, because you can see where the business should be and where it should be going, but sometimes things just don't work according to like your expectations. So it's taught me to be a lot more patient, and you think that, okay, I'm in trouble, probably going to run out of money next week or something like that, but something will come up as long as you keep working at it. Yeah. So I think biggest frustration is probably patience, because I think that we should be here, but we're here right now.
You're not the only one, though. It seems to be the entrepreneurial thing, right? We make up these things of where we should be, where we have to be.
Yep.
But in the end, I mean, it's always us making it up, right? And then we have this benchmark that we made up ourselves, and we're always a little bit behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by now, I should have had, my funding sorted, and I should be raising a Series A, and doing exciting things. I should have 1,000 farmers on the books now, and that sort of thing. So it can be a bit frustrating, because sometimes it doesn't feel like you're moving when you're actually moving very fast.
Yeah, and I think it's also about building a foundation, right? If you raise too much money too early and you have not yet actually sorted out all of the issues, then you can get yourself into proper trouble. Whereas once okay, this model is now working properly, right? then it might save you a lot of headache later, and you can still grow and raise that money.
No, look, I totally agree. I think one of the best things for us is that, well, sort of like a semi-blessing in disguise is that we didn't actually get funding immediately, and we didn't get funding early because there's so much stuff that we had to actually learn, and we've learned some of the stuff now. And I think like if we had probably gotten the funding that we're looking for right at the beginning, we probably wouldn't have jumped into SA, probably be scratching our heads about what to do next in Zim and that sort of thing and figuring out how to make things work. But, the fact that, we've been forced to think outside the box and, bootstrap and stuff like that, it also then makes you calm down as well because, instead of asking for ridiculous amounts of money that you don't know what to do with, you're now asking for what exactly you need and not putting yourself in a position where all of a sudden you find yourself with like $1 million and you don't know what to do with yourselves. And, now you're spending the money on ridiculous things, as opposed to like focusing on the business, or you're actually forgetting why you're doing the work.
JP, what would you say is the most important skill that you've acquired on this journey that you didn't have before? And maybe even with your embroidery business, because that's also an entrepreneurial venture.
For me, it's embracing failure. Initially, like when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, no one wants to fail, and you're so afraid of failure and stuff like that. But failure is actually one of the best things in an entrepreneur's toolkit. Like I eat failure for breakfast, and failure is awesome because then you know that, okay, this shouldn't be done, or maybe we should try this, So experiment, learn quickly, fall fast, and get up even quicker and move on, So don't be afraid to actually make mistakes and don't be afraid to fail because that's how you're actually going to learn, And also the nice thing about failure is it stops you from wasting your time. So you're not in a situation where, so for example, like our business model, like I would hate to learn 2 years from now that the business model doesn't actually work. I'd rather learn now and not waste 2 years of trying the same thing or whatever, So I think failure is very important, and I really do embrace failure.
And I guess also, just losing the fear of failure gives you so much more flexibility in acting fast and, well, trusting an idea that you have in the sense that you test it out, right?
Yeah.
Just go for it and see if it works.
Yeah.
Versus fussing over it for too long.
Exactly. Exactly.
So if you could partner with anyone right now and ask them for anything, who would you partner with and what would you ask them for?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Because I think there's like different levels of like partnership that would be looking for. So, for us, the ideal partner for the company, would be someone like Old Mutual, for example, because like they're an asset manager and stuff like that. So they've got like that, they've got, the networks, the knowledge, the everything that, would probably need to make it work and help us build better models for our farmers. But then also at the same time, if I was looking for someone to actually invest in the business itself, I'm looking for someone who is there to actually help us grow. So, I would never accept money from someone who says that, look, here, I've got $250,000 for you. Do whatever you want. I want someone who also, has got that experience, who's also going to teach us, help us grow and stuff like that, because I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything, So I also want a partner who's also going to be involved and, and do a bit of hand holding for us, and help us actually grow together. On the other business end, I also want to partner up with agricultural companies that, that have got an interest in, getting their inputs to farmers or buying produce from farmers and stuff like that. So it's like, for me, it's such a broad question because there's so many people that I want to partner up with just to make this happen.
JP, your mom gave you the farm to run for her to make it productive. Were you able to make it productive, or did you have to park that project in order to make YouFarm happen? Well,
she's now doing her own thing at the farm, and like we kind of tried working together, but like working with my mother's really tough. So we end up clashing and stuff like that. And, that's what I was like, but let me just continue with the YouFarm stuff. So I'm always laughing at that, we actually haven't done a project at your farm just yet. one of the first reasons why I didn't do any projects at my mother's farm was because I kind of felt like ethically it might be wrong, because we're kind of doing it at our farm or whatever. It would have been a better controlled environment. But I just kind of felt like, I'm asking people for money. Then I explained that, oh, this is going to be put into my mother's farm. They're going to look at you like, yeah, you're not that smart, So yeah, no, she's doing very well at her farm. She does maize, soybeans, and stuff like that. But yeah, we've just never worked together because we'll end up clashing. And I'm sure at some point, like knowing my mother, if I came and I said that, look, okay, we're going to raise for you, she would then start telling us what to do with the funding and whatnot. So yeah, but I love it a bit. So
I'm curious. I mean, you said that farmers can hand in the applications, but yet you do quite a few things to verify that everything is in place. It sounds like a lot of footwork. You said it yourself. So how do you do that, and what are the processes that you needed to put in place in order to handle all these applications? I mean, it's over 180 farmers or something that you said you have right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we've got farmers of different sizes. You've got commercial farmers applying. You've got smallholder farmers applying. You've even got people who've got space in their backyards, applying. You get a message from someone saying that, look, I've got a greenhouse in my backyard. I can do tomatoes. I just need funding and I also need a market and stuff like that. So we even consider those guys to be farmers as well.
Yeah.
Once you aggregate all of those guys with backyards, all of a sudden now you've got a huge piece of land.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So the big thing is having like a dedicated team that can actually get around to view all these farms, inspect, make sure that these people are legit and stuff like that. I mean, one day we would love to maybe build some sort of an algorithm that can, sort all these things out. But I mean, until then, everything has to just be done manually. We can't escape it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, but then you probably also have people that after they farmed once with you, then they will farm again. So
yeah,
that might
and those are easy to work with because they now understand how the process works, and they're less difficult. I think one of the things is like because we're still a new business, the farmers are also skeptic. They're just as skeptic as the investors. So you'll find that the farmers will be like, someone else came with a similar program. They went and sold the produce. I never saw my money. So why should I then trust you guys and stuff like that? So it takes a while to actually build the trust with the farmers as well, to show them that, you're actually genuine, and you need to be able to actually support these guys as well. So be there for, problems that may not necessarily have anything to do with the produce as well. Be able to talk to them and build relationships, because once you actually build relationships with the farmers, then you don't have a problem of these farmers trying to sell the produce on the side and that sort of thing. So it takes quite a bit of work, but I mean, we're still learning as well. So the moment we figure out a better way so that we can actually get more farmers on board and get their projects going faster, the better for us.
Do you guys have, because you said the farmers, they can apply for the platform and they don't have to provide any kind of collateral for the investors. Is there any sort of insurance in place for the investors, or are you planning to do something like this?
Yeah, so no project goes forward without any sort of crop insurance. There has to be crop insurance. The only thing that we can't protect against is commodity prices. So if the prices of tomatoes suddenly drop today, and we're selling our tomatoes today as well, there's really nothing we can do about it. Everyone has to then take a loss. But we try to protect, we try to do as much risk mitigation as we can.
So how does it work? Because you know the off-takers in advance, right? Do you agree with them on a price for the commodity, or do they simply say, hey, we will take off in 4 months at the prices that at the market rate?
Yeah. So we talk of market prices on the day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we work. That's how we work with the off-takers.
Okay. So there is potential risk, but also potential gain in it, both for you as well as for the investors and the off-taker.
Yeah.
Okay. My final question would be, what would be your advice to a young person in Zimbabwe today?
Just get started. Simple and straightforward. Whatever idea you're thinking of, get started. Don't waste time thinking of, I'll get it started when it's now perfect and whatnot. Just get it started. Get your first customer. That's your first customer is your validation. And once you get your first customer, that's, the sky's the limit. but just get started. Don't overthink things. Just get started.